Hello and welcome. This is Dr. Victor. In this special video, I am going to show you how to create a 3D model of a popular magnetic fidget slider toy so you can make them for yourself or as gifts for others. Let's begin. So recently, I worked on a special project or side project that required some small magnets. And I only needed a few, but in order to get the size I wanted with a decent price and shipping time, I ended up getting 130 of them. And this is actually the exact same set of magnets that I got. Now, with over 100 magnets I left, I wanted to make something with those. And I came across with this fidget slider toy. And if you look up this particular one called magnetic fidget slider, you will end up seeing a lot of these. And some of them actually will show you some 3D models available for you to download and 3D print. But very often the size is determined by the creator, and it's very hard to actually adjust the size to fit the magnets. So now I have the magnets, so I need to find a way to create my own 3D model so that I can take it to print. And I did that, and I thought this process might be helpful for you. If you already have a bunch of magnets lying around and you want to make something, or you have a certain set of magnets that you want to buy anyways, this will help you to create your own 3D model. So the modeling tool that I'm using is called Tinkercad. It is made by Autodesk and is available online. It is a really awesome tool that not only lets you create some nice 3D models, but it also has other tools for you to create circuits and even coding blocks. Best of all, it is free, and all you need to do is to create an account with them or sign in using an existing email, which I did. So I'm on this dashboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the 3D designs. As you can see, I already have a few trying things out, and I took one of them to print. And the first thing you do before you want to do any of this modeling is to actually measure the size of your magnets. It is really important because the dimensions of the model that you're going to create is based on the size of your magnets. And sometimes the manufacturer specs are not that accurate. For example, the one that I got, they say is 6 times 1.55 millimeter size. It turns out that they are not quite there. It's actually 6 by 1.2 millimeters. You might think, well, that's only 0.35 millimeters of a difference. So what's the big deal? But if you want a friction fit, that is, you want to fit the parts without using glue at all, you will want to be that precise. And nowadays, a lot of the 3D printers actually allows you to print things that precise. And 0.35 millimeters is actually a really big gap that won't let you to do the friction fit. So that's why you will want to measure them. Now, for magnets, I'm using what I have, but you can use other sizes as well. Generally speaking, I would recommend magnets of size around 6 to 8 millimeter wide and 1.5 to 2 millimeter thick. Essentially, the thicker the magnet is, it could be stronger, same as the wider magnet. It should be technically stronger, but there's a balance, right? You don't want your fidget toy to be too big, and you don't want the magnet to be too weak as well. So for me, the 6 by 1.2 is okay. With a certain number of magnets in this fidget toy, you can feel that little satisfying click, if you will, in that. But it depends on which magnets you have, and this range hopefully will give you some options. And the dimensions of the model that I'm going to create will also allow us to create something that will fit those range. So again, the range is around 6 to 8 millimeter wide and 1.5 to 2 millimeter thick. Now we have the measurements. Let's create a model. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a base or a tray to host the magnets. and we're going to create a cover. In this video, I'm going to create a very simple cover that doesn't have any patterns on it. I'll create a different video later on to show you how I create the exact one that I show on the thumbnail that has some sort of nice patterns on it. And of course, you can play with other patterns if you choose to have something else. Now, so we're going to create and the 3D design, so we're going to create a 3D design. So let's see if I can just create a 3D design over here. And we'll let it load to a screen. And while we are waiting, I'm just going to quickly talk about the plan here. So regardless of the thickness of the magnet, assuming that it's still within the range, we'll aim at making the base 5mm thick. This will also in turn determine how thick each part in this base is going to be. So for a 1.2mm thick magnet, which is what I have, we will have a 0.3mm of a spacer, which is basically the touching the covering the magnet. And once I start making the model, it will come clear to you. And also the space or the gap for the cover to fit in. So in this case, we're going to have a 3.5mm thick. So let me just add a little note over here. So it's just a comment. So let's say while we have a 6 by 1.2mm magnet, right? So this is our base. Right. So our plan for the base, our base is going to be as follows. So we will have a 0.3mm, let's call it spacer. And then we will have, from bottom, we will have the 1.2mm magnet. And then the rest is the, I think, is that it? Okay, well, maybe I'll just use enter over here. So the rest is just the, for the cover. So the cover, let's type cover here. And it's just a math. So we are aiming at a 5mm base, right? So what it means is that it's 5 minus 0.3 minus 1.2. That gives us 3.5 over here. Right, so 3.5mm cover. So this is going to be kind of like our guide to create the base. We're going to create a cover later on, but let's start with the base first. Now, this is important because it's going to help us to shape the base. So our base is going to be based on the size of the magnet, in particular the width of our magnet. So remember this number 6. Right. So we're going to drag a box onto our work plane, right? And to make things a little bit easier to align and whatnot, I will also have a drag a ruler tool over here, right? So let's do it over here. We'll also make sure that the snapping grid is to 1mm. So every time you move, your stuff is going to kind of snap by 1mm, as you can see over here. Over here, the ruler actually has a very interesting way to. There are two modes that you can use. One of them is called use midpoint. So right now, when you highlight it, it says use midpoint. It's actually using a different mode. So the different mode is called endpoint. So it's a little bit confusing at first, but basically what it means is that if you click this thing, it will become using what is shown on the screen. So right now, actually, I want to use the endpoint mode. So I'm going to click it again. If it shows use midpoint, it's actually using endpoint. Right? So it's going to be quite useful. Now, to navigate, I usually will go on top, and then there's two kind of views over here. One is called perspective. The other one is called orthographic. So orthographic is kind of like how human eyes are looking at things. So there's a little bit of perspective here. For design, usually you will want to have the orthographic view. Did I exchange it? It doesn't matter. So what it means is that you're basically looking at it just like a shape. So it just makes things a little bit easier for us to align things and things. But obviously, you're losing the depth perception in it. So you can right-click on your mouse and then drag around. You can also see that. If you want to go back to the top view, this is what you do. All right, so now we have our 6mm magnet. So how wide is our tray or our base is going to be? It's going to be, we're going to create a 2 by 4 matrix of magnets. So in total, 8 magnets. So this base is going to host these 8 magnets, and basically 2 columns and 4 rows. So the width is going to be the magnets themselves. So there are 2 sixes, and then the magnets are going to be spaced with the same amount of dimension. So essentially what it means is that the left and right margin of your tray is going to be, or the base is going to be both 6 millimeters, and then your magnets also 6 millimeters, and with the space between the 2 magnets or the 2 columns of magnets, 6 millimeters. If you are following me still, then you will know that we have 5 units of 6 over here. That means that we have 30 millimeters of width. So let's quickly switch to 30. All right. What about the height? So a very similar concept over here. Again, we use 6 as our base unit. So we have 4 of the magnets in 4 rows of the magnets, and then we will have the space between them. So we have 4 plus 3, so we have 7, and then the margin will give us another 2 sets of 6, so we have a total of 9 6 millimeters. So that's 54 millimeters. So we type 54 over here, and that's how our base is going to look like to start with. Now, don't worry too much. Actually, we can actually worry about the height of this box as well. So we have determined that we want this to be 5 millimeters thick. So we can just type 5 over here. So that's oh, sorry, this is not right. This is actually the green space, the position. This is the blue one, the highlight in blue is the dimension. So we're going to make sure that it is 5, right? So this is kind of like the block that we're going to have for our base. All right, so let's move it to the corner over here. So you can just keep moving. You can see that, like, if I'm not that precise, I can make it precise by typing 0, and also here 0 over here. So make it align to the lower left corner of my ruler, and it's now flush with the guide, the 2 guides over here. Great. So we have a big basic block over here. Now the next thing we want to do is we are going to kind of like round the corners, right? If you see the photo or the thumbnail, you see that we don't really want sharp corners over here. So what am I going to do here? So I'm gonna just zoom in a little bit to show you how it looks like. So in order to do that, there's a very interesting tool in a lot of this like 3D modeling thing, is you're going to create another shape, and then you try to combine those 2 shapes to create a new shape. So we're going to create another tool called Fillet. And if you look up for Meta Fillet, so let me just restart it again and show you how exactly I end up finding it. So I will go to Featured Collections, and then I'm going to click this magnifying glass. Over here, I'm going to type Meta Fillet. And then there will be a field showing up, but this is the one that we are looking for. And I used it before, so I favored it. So that probably is why I forgot about its name. Anyway, this is what we need. So we're going to drag one of these over here. Now you will notice that the size is probably going to be too big for, it's too round for our box, right? So what we're going to do is going to resize it. This particular fillet actually has a few things that you can tweak. So we don't really need to worry too much about the height. As long as this is higher than what we have, it's fine. We have a height of 5 millimeters, so it's fine, 8. The more important part is your radius. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the same number as you have used for the magnet measurement. So in our case, it's 6. So we're going to use 6 over here. Right, so this is going to be our fillet. Now, the next thing we want to do is, it is not going to be a solid. In fact, it's going to be a hole. So I'm going to click this hole button here on the right, and it will become a hole. So you can see that it's kind of grayed out over here. All right, so this is what we want. Now, next you're gonna move it over here so that it aligns with your one of the corners of your box. So this is the top right corner of the box. And if you want to be, very precise, what you can do is that you can align them. So how do you do that? So you can click on this guy, and then hold shift and then click on the other guy. So you can see that it says two shapes are being highlighted. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to click this align button, and then you're going to say, well, align to the top and align to the right. And if it's grayed out, it's already aligned. So this will guarantee that you're actually, putting it in the right spot. If you want to be extra sure, you can tilt it a little bit, right click and drag. You can see that the hole, the fillet is actually taller than your box, which is important because otherwise you won't be getting what we want in just a bit. Right, now we want all four corners to be like this. So how do we do that? So we're going to duplicate this fillet 3 times. So make sure that we are only selecting this guy. So there's only one thing that's being selected, and you're going to press the keyboard combo Control D. If you want to just do a click, you can also do the Control D, this little shortcut button on the top, and I'm just going to do Control D over here. Now, if you take a look at the screen, it doesn't seem like anything has changed, but in fact it does, because essentially you have created a duplicate at the same spot, so you don't actually see the change, but there's a new fillet that is being created, a new object being created, and it's just being placed at the same spot. Now, what you want to do is you want to move it to another corner. Not only that, you kind of want to rotate it or flip it so that it goes to the left-hand side. So how do you do that? Now, while it is still being selected, you will want to hold Shift again and select the box, the red box. Right now, you have 2 items being selected. Right. So the next thing you want to do is you're going to do this mirror option or operation. So you can click mirror, and then Tinkercad is going to ask you, like along which axis. So we want it to be going to the left. So we're going to click this guy. You see that now it jumps to the left, right? So click anywhere on the screen, then you can deselect everything, and you now have the other one on the other corner. So let's take a quick look over there, like this. All right, cool. We're going to repeat the same thing, but this time with both of these corners. So we're going to press this little fillet once, and then Shift, click the other one, and we are going to duplicate. So Control D. Now again, it shows up on the same spot as the originals that we have duplicated. So that's why you don't see any changes. But what we're going to do again is going to flip this time along the the length of this box. So we're going to hold Shift, click the red button, so the red box. You see that again, 3 shapes are being selected, and we're going to do again the flip. So I'm going to do the mirror. Right. This time we're going to flip along the side. You can see that the preview is going to go onto the bottom. So let's do it. Cool. So now we have this 4 corners over here. So technically we are almost done with the shaping. So what we're going to do is we're going to perform this operation called union. So what we need to do is we're going to select all these 5 objects. Okay, so you see that 5 shapes are being selected, and we are going to click this union group. So click this button. You can see that there are a few options which we might use in the future, but right now what we do is we want to union it. You see that after I click this button, all of a sudden the boxes seems to be disappear. That's the result of the union. So essentially the operation is trying to look at what's actually on the plate or in the scene. The whole means remove, subtract. And when it is being combined with the original solid at the corners, it disappears. So what's left is this little guy over here. So you can see that now we have a round angle thing. So let me just show you a little bit. That's what we want for the base. Right, great. So we have now created kind of the base. The next thing we want to do is we're going to create kind of like a cavity in the base. So what are we going to do? So what we're going to do is essentially we're going to create a smaller version of this guy. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to Control D to duplicate, and we're going to move it next to it. Now, the next thing we want to do is we don't want it to be of the same size, so we want to shrink it a little bit. So what I learned is that I can shrink it to each. So we want the margin to be not about exactly 1 millimeter. So that means that our height is going to be 54 subtracted by 2 or minus 2. So let's do that. We'll do 52 over here. All right. And on this side, on the width, same thing. So this is going to be 28. right? So you can see that if I overlap it, we can roughly see this is going to how it's going to look like later on. Like this is kind of like the tray or the base look like. To make things a little bit easier for us to see things, let's change its color to say blue. Right? But this is the smaller version of that. Right. Now, once we have this, let's move it aside a little bit, and we're going to make a duplicate of that. And I'm going to explain why we need two of this. We're going to just Control D, duplicate, move it aside, right? So we have, you know, an exact copy of this smaller version of the tray of all the base. Now, what we're going to do next is we are going to actually kind of carve out the this box, right? So now you remember we have did some math over here, right? So we have the cover being 3.5 millimeters. Sorry about that. So we are going to create a space that is going to be in just enough for this cover to fit. So these two guys, one of them is we are going to use it to create that space. The other one, we're going to actually create a cover. So that means that we don't need 5 millimeters thickness. What we need is actually 3.5. So you can change the thickness over here. You can change this and duplicate after, but now we have duplicated it, we'll just do it this way. Right, so these two things are still identical to each other, size-wise. Now, so what I'm going to do is we're going to carve out that cavity. So let's go back to the top mode, and we are going to move this on kind of like on top of the red box. So you can see that now because it's slightly shorter than the red box. Remember, it's 5 millimeters, so it's going to kind of be inside the red box. We're going to pull it up a little bit so that we can see it a little bit nicely, and we're going to go to the top view. Now we want to make sure this is in the middle of the box. So there are two ways to do that. One is you can use the align tool, the align tool to do that. But since we have 1 millimeter snapping mode, what we can do is really just like move it to snap it to the place. You can verify that it is 1 millimeters away from the x-axis and 1 millimeter away from the y-axis. So that means that it is kind of in the center, in the middle of that. Right. Now the next thing is we want this to be a way for us to carve things out. So imagine that this is a hole. Let's change it into a hole, right? So this hole, how high is it going to sit on above the base of this board, right? So it is going to be above the magnets, which is the 1.2, and above the spacer. That means that it is going to be a 1.5 millimeter above the base board. So we're going to change it to 1.5 over here. Right. So if you think about it, it makes sense when you see something kind of like a little mix of red and blue, because what really happens is that these two surfaces at the top, they actually are now in the same space, right? So this is what we want. Now the next thing is we're going to select both and repeat the same step as we did with creating the corner. So we highlight everything, left click, drag. We can see that the shapes are now being selected with the number of 2 over here. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go here, union group. All right. Now it seems that nothing has happened, but something did happen because the hole now becomes a hole and it combines with our red box. You can see that now with the shades and everything, this is what we want for the box. Right. That is great. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to create some holes for our magnets, right? So we're going to create a bunch of magnets. So let's get back to our shapes. Go back to our basic shapes. What we want are cylinders. So we're going to drag one cylinder over here, and we're going to modify it so that it has the shapes that we want, right? So you know, there are a few things that we can play with. You don't really need to worry too much about this. We will just use whatever is default, but we want to change the size. So remember that our size of the magnet is 6 width and 6 height is a circle, right? And then we have the height of 1.2 over here. So 1.2, right? So if you take a look at the side view, you can see that it's, you know, a thin slice of magnets. Right. Now we're gonna duplicate it a few times. So let's make sure that it's aligned right. So right now, let's move it to a point that it's easier for us to figure out where it is. So let's say it is about 50 millimeters away from the y-axis. right? And maybe we'll just make it same number, 50 millimeters from the y-axis or x-axis as well, right? So it's just the number makes it a little bit easier for us to move things around, right? Now the next thing we want to do is we want to duplicate it because we have a total of 8 magnets, right? So we're going to Control D, 8 magnets, and then we're going to move it. And then you remember that this was what? This was 50, right? So we want a space of 6 millimeters. So we move 6, 56 over here. They are side by side. Another 6, 62. So this will give us the 6 millimeter space, right? So that's great. If you want to be certain, we know that this end is going to be 12 milliliters from this end. So 62 subtract by 50 is 12. Right, that's great. Now we're going to duplicate this into 4 rows. We're going to select both shapes 2, and then we're going to duplicate it. And then we're going to move it down by 6 as well. So now we are down by 6. And then we'll do, so this is now 44 above, right? So another 6, so we're going to do 38. So I'm going to right over here, 38, right? So this is what we need. Now, the next thing is we're going to duplicate these guys again. So select all 4, shapes 4, Control D, and then we're going to move it down again. So now they are touching each other. We're going to move it by 6. So 20 subtracted by 6, it is going to be 14. So I'm going to roughly here. Right, so that's how our magnets are going to be arranged. Now you will notice that there's a reason why we want to space it the same way it is. So the space, vertical space and horizontal space are exactly the same, because when you play with this little fidget, you can even turn it 90 degrees and the base will still snap. So that's why we want to keep the distance, whether it's vertical or horizontal, exactly the same. Now, so now we have this. You need to figure out the height of these guys, right? So how high is it going to be? So let's go back to our plan. So we have 0.3 millimeter spacer. That means that at the very bottom of our tray, 0.3 millimeters are just the base material. Then we have a hole of 1.2 millimeter depth or thick for the magnets to be placed. So this is what I'm going to do. We're going to tilt it a little bit, right click and drag, and then we're going to select all these magnets. Right, so the 8 magnets being selected. We want to change its height so that it is actually situated 0.3 above the baseboard. So let's figure out where it is. So let's zoom a little bit further in. You can see that right now it's actually touching the bottom, right? The base, so the plane, work plane. So we want it to be 0.3 millimeter above the plate, above the ground, right? So that's great. Now we're gonna go back up, and we're gonna move this group as a whole. So we go back to the top view. We're gonna have this all 8 selected still. We're gonna move this. Oops, sorry about that. We're gonna move these guys. Why am I not able to move these guys? So let's just group them, and then we're gonna move. Come on, you can do it. Maybe I should select one of these, yeah, select one of the objects and move it here. You can see that it is kind of disappeared because now it's kind of inside the thing. Now, so you can also do a little bit of math over here to determine where exactly it's going to be. So once again, we want it to be, you remember when we calculate the size of the box, the margin is going to be 6 millimeter. So we're going to move it so that it is actually 6 millimeters away from the y-axis, the vertical axis, and also 6 millimeters above the x-axis. So you can see that both this part and this are also 6. It means that this corner is 6 above and 6 across. This is exactly what we want it to be, right? So now these guys, let me just double check something. So I don't know why it is now back to the base. So we'll make sure that the height is actually 0.3 over here. So you can just see that surfacing on the thing. So that's what we want, right? And again, we want these guys to be holes. So I'm going to change in the holes. You can see that now holes. Now, if we take a look at that, it looks like we're already done, but don't forget that we actually need to combine these shapes. So let's again highlight all these guys. So we'll expect it to have 9 shapes being selected, right? So, 2 shapes because we have grouped these 8 magnet holes. So 2 shapes. And then we're gonna choose our union again. So make sure that it's union. And then we click anywhere. You can see that now we have a thing or a tray that is have exactly 8 holes for our magnets, and it's on the right size, right? Now, so this we can give it a try. This, remember what we created was a cover, right? So this is a plain cover. It should fit right in over here, right? You can see that. Let me just get it higher. So our spacer is 0.3, our magnet is 0.2. That means that it needs to be 1.5 millimeter higher. So you can see that it goes kind of like actually flushed with the top of the red box, right? And if you want to see what's inside, there's a trick to do that. You can see whatever solid it is, and then you're going to change the color. You can change it to transparent, then you can roughly see what's actually in it. Right? So this is, how it looks like. Right? So if this is something that you want to double check, that's fine. Doesn't really matter. It's just a rendering of the shape. Now we have basically finished creating our shapes, like based on the size of our magnet. So let's just move it aside a little bit. Oops. Let's move it just elsewhere. Now, what we want to do next is we want to export this into 3D models that we can actually send it to the 3D printer. Right. So let's do this, and that will be the end of our little video over here. So there are 2 parts, right? So this guy is our tray or our base. We're going to press export. Now, in most cases, what you want to do is to select STL. OBJ usually works, but the more standard ones is STL, and that's enough for us. So you can click STL, and then you will save it onto your computer, and then you can either save it into your USB thumb drive, or you send it to a print job or whatnot, so that this will be printed. And all of the dimensions should be preserved, so you don't have to adjust or scale anything. Right. Same thing, excuse me. For the cover, we are going to select the cover, right? And we're going to choose export, and then we're going to choose STL. Now, one thing that I want you to make sure is that you want to select the shape. In this particular video, I only have 2 shapes, so it's fine. In my other file project, sometimes there's a bunch of like random helper objects to create holes, create fillets, or whatnot. I don't want to export all of them. So normally what I would recommend is use the select the shape. You select the shape, which is 1 shape at a time, and then you do STL. Another reason for doing that is that you might want to have a different color, right? For my case, I want a black tray, and the other one is going to be, I don't know, a yellow or orange cover. Then you are better off saving it into 2 different objects file, so that you can print it, on different printers or do other things. So that's how you can create a little tray based on the magnet size that you have. So once again, if you have a different magnet size, you will have to first measure that, and then you use that measurement to determine how wide your box is, how high your box is. We are almost always going to use 5 millimeters thickness. If your magnet is really thick, you might have to rethink about the thickness of this. But generally speaking, I think 5 millimeters thick is a good number, because you will have 2 of these to make the slider, right? That means that you have a total of 1 centimeter thick of little fidget toy. So once you have these 2 files, what you want to do is that you send to a 3D printer, and print each of these twice. So you have, a set of 2 of these guys. You might also want to experiment with the cover. Sometimes it's so precise that this cover will fit right into the tray or the cavity, but it doesn't friction fit. So what you want to do is you might want to increase each dimension by a total of 1 millimeter. So for example, you can make this one, instead of 52, you can make it to 53. Instead of 28, you can make it to 29. So that will fit. You can also do the same adjustment in the 3D printing software before you slice those things. So I think I'm going to stop here, and I will create a different video to show you how you can make a fancier cover. So right now the cover is really just a block, but if you see the thumbnail, you can see that there are some patterns you can apply on it, and I'll show you in a different video on how to do that, just that. All right, so thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And feel free to let me know how your printout, how your design looks like and turns out in the comments. And I hope to create another video for you soon. Take care and goodbye.